Hi,
Hi there. So where are you?
I'm in London. This is where I live now.
Oh, really? For how
Yeah.
long? When did that?
I've been here for a year. I was in Berlin for 6 years, and then I moved here last year in 2023.
And why did you decide to move?
Um, I moved here basically because travel from Berlin, since it's not a hub city, it's really quite difficult. And I do a lot of international travel, and sometimes that required two flights. And so I'll give an example. If I wanted to go to Ibiza, which is 2.5 hours from Spain to Berlin, I would have to go to Frankfurt or Munich, or I would have to take a vacation airline. And I travel so much, it was causing me a lot of travel anxiety.
Yeah.
And also, the German bureaucracy is quite challenging.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for it just wasn't working for how, as a creative, um, the system really wasn't beneficial to how I needed it to be as opposed to being in the UK. So it was just a lot of logistical reasons for leaving. The end of a 5-year relationship. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so it was just lots and lots of change. So we just made change.
It's incredible. It changes the word of the minute, right? It's just if you're not going to adapt to change right now, you're really in a tough situation. I just think in for the last 6 months, the amount of change I
Oh, wow.
personally have
Yeah.
gone through, the company, I finally got married in
Oh,
November.
congratulations. I know
Yeah,
you were talking for a long time about that.
I know. And I got to tell you, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about marriage. It's,
Really?
I,
At this stage in the game, you're not sure about, I mean, I would believe at this stage in the game, you're not sure about me. That would make complete sense.
yeah. Have you ever been married? Have you ever?
I've never wanted to have a traditional anything in my life. Um, and marriage for me was just something I saw what my mom went through and I see what my sister goes through. And I'm like, who's getting the short end of the stick here?
I a friend of mine said, Norm, I'm really surprised you're getting married. I always thought of you as a 1 foot out the door person. And I
Yes.
thought, oh, what a horrible thing to say. And then I thought, actually, I guess that's kind of me. Like you, I never like, why would anybody want that? But then
Right.
I thought, well, maybe now that I'm older, it's what you should do. But I,
Okay, can I stop you right there? This is one of the things that I'm really becoming cognizant about. What you should do, because whose should are you doing?
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. But I mean, um, there's a certain aspect of it when you're a couple and you want to be responsible for each other and, on paper. Um, so I thought from that point of view, okay, but I, um, I know when he first introduced me as his wife and he looked at me and he said, I know you're not my possession. That didn't
Right,
sound good. I get it. And
right,
I was like,
right.
and that's how I feel like I can't introduce you as my husband. I don't want you to be my possession. So it's not just words. It's really, like you said, you can't, you're not a traditional person and
No,
I don't think it fits my MO either to be a
right.
traditional person. So, but change, what other changes? Moving is a big, I mean, there are all of these studies about therapy needed for big transitions in your life and breaking up with someone, moving or,
Oh, last year was really hard. My father passed away
oh,
after a
wow.
very, so it was literally, I can give you the chronological timeline. I moved February 1st. My partner decided that he didn't want to be in the relationship anymore in April. My father was diagnosed with glioblastoma at the end of March, and they gave him like 9 to 18 months. He passed in 5.
Oh,
I moved February 1st. My relationship ended in April. My father passed away in August. And
well,
in the meantime, I had to show up emotionally from my family, from myself,
yeah,
and from my career. And it was I'm still dealing with that.
yeah,
And
you
in the
will.
meantime, and then in the meantime, having rebound toxic sexual relationships with people that I shouldn't be involved with. And so it was just now in the last couple of weeks, I've decided to just stop. Um, Not looking for partnership, not looking for
Yeah,
sexual anything. I just needed to stop just so I can just get centered again.
yeah.
Because I mean, it's not only that I moved to a new house, I moved to a new country. And so it's also learning how London works and being in the culture of the British,
Yeah.
and learning their language and their customs and how they navigate and even how they interact and have relationships. Because, I'm a New Yorker and it's no matter where I live, I am a fucking New Yorker to the
Yeah.
core. And, we are direct and not everyone's direct, and so
Uh-uh.
that has been. I mean, I was in Germany where there was directness without empathy. So that's a whole different kind of directness. So, at least, in New York, you get a bit of directness with,
Yeah.
it
And
can be,
with a sense of humor and with like with
yeah,
an understanding that we just like move on, do what you
sarcasm,
got to do. Yeah.
cynicism. They
Yeah.
don't have, I haven't come across German sarcasm or cynicism yet. Maybe I'm just not because I
It's
wasn't,
subtle. It's too
it's
subtle.
not, I haven't encountered it yet, but yeah. But
But
yeah, I had probably the three biggest life changes you can have in a very condensed period of
huge,
time. Yeah.
huge.
The death of a parent, moving to another country, and the ending of a 5-year long-term relationship,
Well,
which wasn't by my choice. So having to realize that, who am I without all of these things and
yeah.
having to show up for a career because as you know, when you work for yourself, and especially in the arts and entertainment that I'm in, you know, no one really gives a shit about the backstory.
No. They just want you to do what they expect of you.
And paid for.
And you know what? I think if I think about situations, and I'm sure you feel the same in your life, where you evolved into this person, this next level, as a result of the universe just smacking you in the face with so much shit that
Yeah.
you get up off the floor and you get to the next place you're supposed to be. And so I think in this very dynamic time of change, with all of the planets going in major provocative places, Pluto is obviously moved out of Capricorn into Aquarius. Bam, you are meant to be in the next place, and the transition for you to feel the pain of this and to go to the next place is obviously happening now for you. And I think in a lot of respects, for a lot of people, I think more and more people that you talk to will have stories. Yours is pretty profound, I have to say.
Yeah, it's pretty profound.
Yeah.
Um,
And London, I love London. And I think as a New Yorker, London is a more comfortable place than maybe others.
exactly. Yes, it's a much more comfortable place. Um, that's probably the best way someone has put it for me because, I thought, another place that I love is Spain. I love Barcelona.
Uh,
I love Madrid,
Barcelona.
but Barcelona. But as a New Yorker, I feel like it's something later down the line for
Yeah.
me, if you understand what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
I and Paris was I love to go, but I love to leave.
Mm,
It's Italy, there were just so few places as a New Yorker, and only if you're a New Yorker can understand where
mm,
I can go and feel, even when I come back to New York, I'm one of the reasons I left New York is I didn't want to be one of those New Yorkers that talked about how New York used to be so great, and I just didn't want to be that person. I just did not want to be that person because I did think there's nothing worse than complaining about the past. Um, and so but it's changed so dynamically. You know, Even when I moved to New York in the late 90s, I feel like I was just getting the tail end of what it was from the 60s, 70s, and
right,
80s.
right.
It still wasn't what it is today.
Mm,
And the biggest thing that I have is New Yorker when I go back is the prices of everything in New York. It's not even obscene, it's grotesque. And I just think, how, as a young person, can you come here with no money and make it work?
yeah.
Um, when I came there, you could still make it work.
Mm.
Um, but now, like, it's so inexpensive. And
It's challenging on a lot
it's
of levels.
really challenging on a lot of levels. The people that inhabit Manhattan now and the services, it's just when I moved there, you could still go out 7 nights a week. And
Yeah,
you could be in different worlds. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And then sometimes those worlds will intersect and collide and mingle and new
yeah.
things will come out of that. But everyone is so tunnel vision right now. People go to the things they like, the things they do, the people they know. And still for me, there isn't that sort of gumbo, I like to
Yeah.
call it, as much as it used to be.
My observation is that there's we're too uh, perfect.
That word.
There's no raw energy coming from anywhere. There's no
Yeah.
experimentation.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to take a risk. Everybody wants to be Instagram ready. It's like
Metrics.
everything has to be ready for a photograph.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and and I miss the edginess that really makes New York really fantastic. And I
Yeah.
think that's why a lot of people are moving to places like Austin and Nashville and
And
these,
Hudson,
yeah, like, yeah,
upstate.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think that I think there's something about that. I also think, and I'm really curious, one of my questions in my head to you, I was thinking as I was getting out of the shower, I'm like, I really want to know what Honey thinks about what what's going on in the world and how safe do we feel? How are we all nervous about an impending something? And you travel so much that I
Mm.
thought you really probably are picking up energy
Different
in that
vibration.
area. So what do you think? I mean, are you feeling that people are fearful or anxious or there's certain kind of dynamic that's happening?
I think going back to profound change, we are definitely in a very big shift at the moment. The thing that I notice, I sort of feel like I live in this very creative bubble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I go between the worlds of art and fashion and music and nightlife. And so um, I tend to be around a very liberal thinking people, majority of the time. But I think the biggest fear that I'm noticing from people is the rise of populism and fascism and totalitarianism and imperialism. And, you know, I would say it's probably started when I think about the most profound changes in the last was 2014 now. So when you think about what happened with Me Too, with George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, then we went from those two things, and then we went into the pandemic, and then we had Trump we had Trump, and then we had the pandemic, and then as soon as we came out of the pandemic, there was Ukraine, and then shortly thereafter, it's been Gaza, and on top of the financial crisis, and on top of um, um, glo global warming. It feels like none of us can get a break from any angle, really. And so I think there's a definite feeling of anxiety. Also, since I'm around a lot of young people, if you think about if you were 13 at the beginning of the pandemic, you're now 16 and you were isolated from very big, important
Mm-hmm.
moments in your young adult life, coming into puberty, socialization, social media has really changed how even people interact with each other. And um, I didn't grow up where everything was about metrics, how popular or how many views or how many likes or what I had to do to get. I always thought you had to be good at something.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that I come from a time when you actually had, especially in New York, you actually had to have a voice or a vision or
Right.
something to contribute in order to be invited to the party.
Yeah.
And now, I think about so many intersectionalities of all the things that we're dealing with, because when you think about advertising from post-World War II, when, they started to use psychology to sell people things. And, that's all social media is capitalism at the end of the day. And they just figured out how to monetize the human experience better. Um, but I find people are dealing with a lot of anxiety, and I find people are not having the language to define that anxiety. I think when you talk, just going back to marriage, these sort of um, systems that worked no longer really kind of
Mm.
work anymore. Um, I think social media, there's a cure for every symptom now. And so how do you figure out which cure works for you when there's 75 different people telling you to come and take my pill?
Yeah.
And so I think there's a bit of schizophrenia going on, because we're all just like, where
Mm.
there's so I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like time has sped up. And I don't know if time has sped up because I do more things in a day than most people did in a week.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I'm so bombarded with information over the course of the day that by 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock, I'm like done. And then it's just like I can't ingest anything anymore. And then it's just the next day, it's the same thing. And so what I try to do is, one of the great things about my career is, as a DJ and being in clubs, for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours, time suspended. And this is why I always felt that night clubbing, eh, for me, was not about entertainment. It was about connection and community and release and dance and sexual exchange. And but that's been commodified too. Just like the reason I fell in love with clothing and fashion, it's completely something different now. And so I think people are just sort of trying to, I think a lot of us are a bit trying to figure out a path through all of this noise. And I think young people, I think the biggest social shift that we've had in the last decade would have to definitely be gender. I think um, that's challenging. That the reason that it's so much pushback is because it's challenging the system, it's challenging patriarchy, it's challenging misogyny, it's challenging. Um, People are trying to hold on to these things because they know once this shift happens, they will no longer have this power. So to circle back to your question, what I learned from traveling the world, I feel that there's a lot of anxiety of not knowing what's next.
Um, and I think your point about the speed and of the way things are moving, you know, you and I and a lot of people we know have a lot packed into a day. And it
Oh my
feels
God.
in somebody else's life, it's a month, it's not even a
Yeah.
week. And so that there's that aspect of it too. And the uncertainty is very stressful
Yeah.
And each of our lives have stress, but then you add in these big traumas and these big stressful experiences, and then people aren't sleeping. I did a survey the other day of just asking everyone, what's your sleep like? What's happening with your sleep? And everybody's had issues with sleep through
Oh,
the
I have,
years.
yeah.
And
I have
so,
wakefulness.
yeah,
I go to bed and then I just wake up and then I go
yeah,
back to sleep and then I
that's,
just wake up,
yeah.
you know.
Yes, that's the syndrome that's happening now, by the way. And I never woke up. I used to sleep through the night. I would like put my head down, done. And now I go to sleep. I wake up same time every night. And I think it's to go to the bathroom, but I don't really think it's to go to the bathroom. I just wake up and then I go back to sleep and I wake up again. And sometimes I don't go back to sleep. And that so not good for your health, so not good for your
Yeah.
for any aspect of your life. It's not good for aging. It's not good for anything. And so what's the solution? And I think, again, referring to when you talk about the club and community, I think there was a time when religion had brought people together as community. And a lot of people used religion and community as a safe place, right? It was a place where you understood what was right and what was wrong. You had a sense of respect for the other person. You cared about these people because you knew them. You knew their families. You knew everything about them, whether it's a neighborhood community or a religious community or some community. And now religion has a lot of a lot of people very confused. People have walked away from religion. Some people are going back to religion again. But I think what you said about the club being a community and having that, you have, the people, you care about them because you see them, you dance with them, you sweat with them, you have a familiarity with them. And the music is, so you think of the church and the singing and the choir and the music. So the music in the club
Mm.
is another aspect of it. Um, and you're the preacher with the music, you're setting the tone for how they're going to feel. And
Mm.
I think we're so divided. There's so much hate because we don't know each other. And the
That's
more
intentional.
we have to become closer to people who we believe we disagree with and have differences. We have to know what they're saying. We have to really not listen to news programs or propaganda about everybody and just hear, even if it's hard to hear what somebody is saying that seems to be very different, and listen and allow them, by us listening to them, to listen to us and find a way to get together, because we cannot exist with this divided hatred. It's
Mm.
so scary.
Hmm.
It's so scary that we could actually turn on each other in this way and not even care about it. Just pronounce hate for the other person. And I'm so worried about that. And I think the club, you know, in the club, maybe everybody has the same attitude and political leanings and social attitudes, but maybe not everyone. And I think finding more ways to bring people together has to be some plan that we put in place. Otherwise, we're just gonna turn on each other and never find a way to communicate.
Mm.
And I don't know, what do you think? I mean, music and art are a form of communication, right? Your job is to use this to bring people together, to make them feel good, right? My job is to make people feel good in clothes. But
Right.
what do you think is, what can we do besides what we try to do when what you do beautifully?
Well, thank you.
But what do you think when you look at all of this?
Well, one of the things is that I really miss about New York when I was there was that we were all forced we were all compacted in this island and we were forced to live with difference. And that's what I loved about New York. I loved that sense of um discovery and you know just to go backtrack a little bit when I was very fortunate enough to be born at the beginning of this subculture that was called house music, which now is a global thing. um and basically house music is basically um a descendant of disco never went away, it just morphed into house music basically.
Hmm.
um Frankie Knuckles used to say house music is disco's revenge. And I
Right.
love that because because there was this huge backlash in Chicago with
Right.
Steve Ball and the
Right.
disco demolition. And it really wasn't about disco, it was about racism and patriarchy and system, all of those
Yeah.
things. Um, um, but one of the things that I love about that time is that the dance floor was very egalitarian. You had people from the Bronx, you had businessmen, you had drag queens, you had transgender people, you had designers, artists, music. It was, I always like to say there are social, three big years for me that had major social change. And that was June of 1969, the Stonewall riots. 1981, when there was the first published report of 41 homosexuals diagnosed with this rare form of cancer that we now know as AIDS. But actually, AIDS had literally, that was when it was first in the mainstream press. It was in the gay press in
Hmm.
1980. And 2007 with the smartphone.
Ah,
So, because you had life before the smartphone and then you had life after the smartphone.
right.
And so one of the things that I really loved about New York is that you had to go out. I have four principles: meet, mate, create, no, meet, mate, create, and participate. So you had to go out to meet people, to find work, to connect with other creatives, to see what people were wearing in the streets, to hear music from. You would go to different clubs to see what other DJs were playing. You would have to go to the record store, it was like the community for DJs. You know, you just you had to be out, and it wasn't like a Pinterest board or someone
Yeah.
deciding. It wasn't. You literally had to physically. This to me is not physically engaging. This is not an energetic exchange.
Hmm.
This is not a sensory exchange, how someone walks or talks or smells or gestures. I always love the word gesture is the word gesture and intention are two very underrated words in that I think we should use more often. But what I try to do with my work and my platform and my visibility is to remind people that this music and this culture came from marginalized people. It came from queer people of color. It came from women. It came from immigrants. When you talk about, disco was a lot of Latin percussion, it
Yeah.
came from Latin, and so, for me, um, it's very hard to navigate this world where there is so much division, which is intentional for agendas, because I never, ever, ever really lived my life in that way. You know, I always had friends from all different walks of life, all different racial backgrounds, gender expression. And it was for the love of the music that we were all into. And we bonded over that, or we bonded over the dress codes, because every subculture that's how you found your tribe, is if they were
Yeah.
wearing a certain something. And
Right.
and it wasn't a brand or logo, but it was how someone put themselves together. And you're like, where are you
That's
going?
right. Yeah.
Where did you get that? Or you know what I mean? So for me, that's how that was my entry into fashion because, from the house music culture and how people put themselves together. Of course, we all worship certain people that made things at a certain time. Um, but it wasn't about aspiration, it was about inspiration. And I've always hated that word in fashion, aspiration, because for
Mm,
me, that's cosplay.
yeah.
You're trying to be, and most aspiration, the the way I process it is about having this rich life or looking rich or appearing rich or being from a social circle or in a certain class in the world. You're aspiring to be where you are now is not good enough, so you have buy this, wear this, live
Yeah.
this way, have this, and that to me was always really conflicting because I fell in love with clothing or music or a community because I felt an emotional connection, or it gave me purpose, or it made me excited, or I discovered something new, or it expanded my way of thinking. I think, when we talk about change, I think what is happening now, we're having to adapt the way we even think now about things because change is happening so fast, and you can't be too stagnant in your thinking. And you know, people don't, people want to turn off the channel when Trump is saying something, but I'm like, no, we need to really listen to what he's saying. Like, we can't turn away from this because regardless if you like him or not like him, he's an excellent marketer. And I see New York when I see Trump. I just,
Well,
the way
yeah,
I just
yeah, he speaks like a New Yorker.
he speaks like a New
And
Yorker.
if you speak like a New Yorker, there's a lot of people that aren't going to like you because they can't
Yeah,
handle
yeah.
the harshness of it
The
or the
harshness and the
honesty, the
directness.
directness. And I agree with you. I think I, you have to listen to
You
everybody
have to.
because there are 50% of this country are
After
are
everything he's done and said
are
and stands
yeah
for, and
are
they're still like, yes.
so why and if you don't pay attention, you're ignoring people who are part of the place that you
Of
connect to,
coexistence. Of coexistence.
and ignoring that is really dangerous.
Yeah.
I find it one of the most dangerous things we do is not to listen to everybody. And I think the divide between the haves and have nots is very dangerous. And people
Of course.
we need to know what this is. And your total assessment of aspirational, I think, I really think the next generations have no desire to be aspirational. They have had it. They think it's horrific. They don't want a part of it. And
Yeah.
I find it offensive too, to be honest, just the way you
I
do.
mean, I drank the Kool-Aid for many years, the Kool-Aid of good taste and the Kool-Aid of, living in a certain way. And I realized as a person of color, a lot of those value systems were colonialist values. And I had to start really understanding what I was killing myself to have. And then once I had it, I heard this really great line. Um, Black faces in high places won't save you. And if you are in these spaces and you are just towing the party line, do you understand where I'm going with
I
that? It
totally
doesn't
hear
matter.
you.
It doesn't matter if there's a queer person or a woman or a black person or not
Hmm.
in these systematic spaces that are
Right.
holding up the oppression.
Yeah.
It doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
So for me, I've had to unlearn a lot of things. And also, um, it's a continual thing, because there's no safety net now. Who am I without these things I've been indoctrinated with? If
Hmm.
I don't, and so it's learning to be the best line my therapist ever gave me. If I ever leave with one piece of wisdom that my therapist gave me. Is like you have to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And especially one of the great things about not living in the US is because, the one of the things that the United States does so well is everything's great and happy and we're the best and number one and you know and America doesn't really do well with things that are uncomfortable. And we have so many ways to numb ourselves through entertainment, through drugs, through food, through social media. There's so many things to numb ourselves so we don't have to deal with the uncomfortableness of who I am, what am I,
Mm.
what is going on, who are you, the uncomfortable things. So when you talk about marriage, my question is, and this is not directed towards you, is like, do you really know the person that you're choosing to do this with? I mean, why are because one of the things that I learned in my 5-year relationship was that I started with one person, and when he left, he was someone I didn't recognize. And this isn't a slow, it's not like the light switch went on. It's just that I wasn't looking at the change and the change wasn't being addressed.
Mm.
And I feel a lot of it was my own selfishness because I was like, well, what am I getting out of this?
Right.
Suits my needs, regardless of how this person feels. And so this is grown up shit. And so when people say like, oh, when I say, people get married, like I'm gonna give you a bit. I had a bit of a rebound with someone that was engaged to be married. And I asked him, why are you getting married? Well, we've been together for 7 years, and isn't this what you're supposed to do? And I said, is it? You are having an affair outside of your primary. So I don't know what you guys have agreed to.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can tell me anything. Everyone, we're now in this era of polyamory and
Mm.
ethical non-monogamy, and my partner's aware, and all of so as a single person having to navigate that new world too, because it's not like monogamy is something that's quite old-fashioned for a lot of people, this
Right.
new
Right.
generation. So now having to and one of the things that I've realized, people will tell you what they want you to hear to get what they need. And so I don't know if this person was telling me the truth, but what I took from this was like, that's a red flag for me. Like, you're getting married because isn't this what you're supposed to do?
Mm.
What if it's working out great the way it is? And oh, and well, this is what she wants. I'm like, well, that's really rather novel of you to like I mean, you're putting her needs above what you want. Like, these aren't mutually
Mm.
connective things.
And he's with you. So everything is just, yeah, everything must be just fabulous then if he's feeling that
He
it's
told me
a
she knew, but like I said,
oh
I
please.
I didn't call her on the phone if I,
Oh
like
please. Oh
because
please.
you know
It's
what I mean.
yeah.
And it wasn't my business, and I thought I could go into it. You think you've been around the block a couple of times, like, oh, I'm not going to get emotionally involved. I'm just going to have a good time. I'm not going to do that.
Mm.
But the problem is that human beings are messy. Emotions are messy. Um, if there's chemistry there, you don't know what's going to happen. Thank God it ended. It ended
Mm.
before it became worse. But
Mm.
um, yeah, I think we're just at a moment now of just really like trying to navigate such profound changes in a day.
And everything doesn't last forever. I mean, I think at 78, I can say um, I've had a series of relationships that had, they lasted certain periods of time. And then sometimes when they ended, I was devastated. And other times it was like, yeah, I'm ready for that. And I think a lot of that, and you talked about your 7-year relationship, and all of a sudden you realize it was a different person. but
Yeah.
you also
Yeah.
are a different person, right?
Yeah.
And possibly you evolve even more
Right.
than the partner evolves. And so it's, I think my assessment and the reason why the relationship I'm in now feels right is we are both in the same age range and
Right.
we've evolved and evolved and evolved. And so getting married at 26, just shoot yourself in the head because that's incredibly stupid. And even at 30 and at 40, it's better. And at 50, we're having relationships that you're now with a person that's more like you in, or more, it doesn't have to be like you, but more connected. And so in my relationship, one of the things we're very different, very different. I mean, he doesn't really understand a lot of the things I think about and do, but we have a connection about people and things that
Right.
is very open. We like being with people that think in different ways,
Right.
that do different things from different countries, that have a different idea of right and wrong and culture. We
Mm.
both really love that. And if some of our friends knew we were friends with other people, they would be angry at us, right?
Right.
But we love that. And so we have dinners at our house that are very exciting and interesting because the people are interacting and having conversation, and it's a safe place because nobody's judging anyone, and it's
Right.
okay to
Right.
hear what somebody has to say. So that's our connection.
Right.
But I could not have had this connection earlier when I was younger. I wasn't, I don't think I was ready to have that type of a relationship. So I think you evolved as well
Oh,
as
I
your
definitely did.
partner,
Yeah, I definitely
and
did.
probably didn't want to be inconvenienced because you're too busy to be breaking up with someone,
Well,
right?
the no, the my partner in the relation because he felt like he wanted to be with someone that was in the same life stage as him. So
Oh,
just
really?
yeah. So I think I was too, you know, I he comes from a small town in Germany. I came from New York, and so he was a bit of I he was sheltered from a lot of street smarts people like he was we were just really from two different worlds. um and so I think he wanted something that was more familiar
Yeah,
to him,
yeah,
um as opposed to someone like me who's a New Yorker. I'm not afraid of combative situations, or tell me why you think that way, or what do you mean, or let's talk about, I'm just it's
Plus,
just like,
you have a global mentality,
and
and
you know what? I'll be really honest. That has made my pool of potential partners small
yes, yes,
because
yes,
I literally go to different countries like most people go to the corner deli.
absolutely,
And and I'm around different types of people, and I'm around, I know sex workers just as much as I know very high profile people.
right,
And that to me is beautiful.
yeah,
I love
I agree,
like 3 weeks ago I was on stage with Madonna, and then, next week I could be, I'm talking to my girlfriend who's a trans sex worker. And so I just hear,
yeah,
for me, it's life.
yes,
And you'd be surprised what a lot of similarities are in these worlds. People don't
yes.
realize there's more in common than there is difference.
That's back to the same thing. We have to talk
Yeah,
to each other.
yeah,
And in my relationship, he is a global. He's traveling even more than you travel. He's in the Middle East twice a month. He's in London, and he's everywhere. And his ability to adapt and to be a global person works for me because I've done so much traveling in my career that you can't really have a conversation with someone who's hasn't gone past New Jersey. You can't a relationship because the dynamic of that understanding that, and it's not being elitist, it's just there's a familiar conversation with
Yeah.
someone in a different way. It
I mean,
is,
I think, yeah, it's just a different conversation in a different way. And also, um, I find that I need to be with someone that has a curiosity also, and also wants to explore. And that was the one good thing that I had with my ex-partner is that he was a curious kind of person, but he had other issues to deal with. Um, but like I said, it's hard living anywhere else once you lived in New York.
yeah. But this is, the universe hits us hard so that we make change. And you got hit really hard
You know
in
what
this.
though? I don't think it would have happened to me if I wasn't prepared for it. And also, I always lived by this theory. So I grew up, my mom procrastinates. One of the things that I had to overcome from growing up in my house was procrastination. And um, I always like to live from the point of view, I'd rather make the change before the universe makes the change for me. I'd
Yeah,
rather have more agency in my life
yeah.
before things happen for me because um, life is going to happen whether you like, and this goes back to being perfect.
Mm,
You know, capitalism has done a really great job of convincing us if we are, no one tells you what happens after perfection. You get to perfect, then what happens? I always love what Karen Finn said. Oh, I went out to a club, nothing happened. She does this whole monologue speech about nothing happened. Oh, I saw the Statue of Liberty, and I went to the very first top. Nothing happened. Do you know what I mean? It's just sort of like we just work so hard.
all right,
Because I'll tell you something. I used to think having 100,000 followers was great. Oh, but it's not the same as the person that has 2 million. So now I need to have 2 million followers. And
right.
then once we get 2 million, so, well, Kim Kardashian has 183 million. So I
Yeah,
need that many followers.
yeah.
And so, there's a great book called Who Moved My Cheese. I don't know if you know about Who Moved My Cheese. Where it's just like the cheese keeps getting moved and you keep
Yeah,
trying to mouse in the maze and you think once you get close to the cheese, but then it keeps getting moved. And so, there's a lesson like nothing I always think about, so back to marriage. Society tells women there's all these rituals and pomps and circumstances, the dress, the venue, the flowers. So you finally get the partner. No one tells you what happens after you get the partner. No
that's
one
right.
tells you what happens after the perfect wedding, the perfect face, the
All
perfect
right.
body, the perfect partner, the perfect job. No one tells you because nothing happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Or there's a big letdown because nothing happens.
Yeah, there's a big
And
letdown. I
and
mean,
then the idea of the idea of a wedding, of a gown and a ring
oh
and
my
all
gosh,
of
shut me
that is
down.
so horrible to me. And
No
so,
disrespect that people that want that fantasy, because I'm all about live your fantasy. It's a fantasy,
yeah.
but I'm really not. I mean, I don't even know if I'm at the stage in my life now. I don't even know if I want another romantic partnership.
Uh,
Because I didn't realize that. I think I hate to bring this gender roles, and I'm saying this from a systematic standpoint and a societal conditioning standpoint, not as individuals. But it's like I think for a lot of women, you end up getting a kid, and it's like I didn't want to become a mommy, and no one
uh,
wants to fuck mommy, and it's sort of like, but mommy holds everything together. Like I found out that I was so many things with my partner. I was a psychiatrist, I was a stylist, I was the maid, I was the cook, I was the sexual partner, and I was all of these things. And then, but then somehow I became mommy, and mommy's not sexy.
that's mommies raise their sons, right?
Exactly.
Mommies create these situations because
Yeah.
then the sons are looking for mommy.
Um,
And I have to say, I am not a good mommy.
I'm not a
I
good mommy either. I am,
I
you
can
know why I'm not a
I
good
can
mom?
bluff it for 2 years and then I can't do
Yeah,
it anymore.
I'm not a good mommy because I cannot erase all of the things that I've had to do to take care of myself in the world and then relinquish that so you feel better or feel more empowered or it
Yeah,
doesn't threaten your masculinity or it doesn't threaten where you are.
right.
I so I'm supposed to all of a sudden acquiesce all of the hard work I've had to do on me so you can feel okay.
Yeah.
That kind of doesn't, so I'm kind of like, I'm starting to question this. It would be nice to, and I'm just saying this for me, I'm not speaking for anyone else. It would be really nice if I could just finally met someone that also did the same amount of work on themselves that I've done on myself. And I'm
Yeah.
not talking financial. I'm just talking the inner work.
Yeah.
And I'm talking just so those two things can see each other. And I haven't come across that because I work in Alice in Wonderland. I work in nightlife and I work in music and I work in fashion. And, these are all playgrounds in a lot of ways. And so, um,
You know,
and
uh,
I'm around a lot of young people
yeah,
all the time, which is
but
great.
but here's the thing I that you have to think about. I was resigned to the fact that other people had soulmates and I wasn't going to
Yes,
because very much we're very different people. But
yes,
everything you just said, I could say
yes,
because I work very hard to survive in my own world, to be my own person, to own my own company, to
yeah,
deal with masculine forces dominating
yes.
and speaking down to me and being disrespectful and
Mhm,
treating me objectively.
mhm.
And so I thought, I can't pretend to be this woman that I'm supposed to be for a man.
Right.
I'm not going to have a soulmate. Other people will. I have good friends. I created my world. How many people can say they're
Say
you
that.
or me?
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
lucky, right?
yeah. Bless.
However, when I met my partner when I turned 65, actually Ian Schrager introduced me to him, and um, and I thought to myself, oh, this is an interesting guy. I never would ever gone out with him. I never. He's not anything to do with my world. There's no connection here. And then I was very busy and I said, he asked, Ian created a dinner so we would meet each other. Um, and then he asked me if I'd like to go to dinner. And I said, to be honest, I made a commitment for my company. I made a commitment that I was going to make every pattern for the next collection to make sure I still had my craft. I didn't shave my legs or do any personal grooming for the entire time. So dating could not fit into this.
Right,
So
that wasn't on the menu.
not happening. So I said, I need a couple of months, 6 weeks. I'm good. Then, so over the 6 weeks, we texted, and I thought, oh, this is an interesting person.
Right.
Actually, I'd like to meet him. And then I realized, wow, this person feels like he doesn't need a mommy. In fact, he's everybody's daddy.
Right.
He's the one that's taking care of everybody. He's more of a mommy than most mommies are, and very self. He's a person that everybody looks to for advice and heads of countries, and he's a special guy. And then I thought, wow, I actually think I've met my soulmate. And then
Right.
and so what I'm saying is I never would have met him in my world. Just like you may not meet your soulmate in your world because
Yeah.
you just described it. But somebody like Ian, Ian and I have been friends since we met, through this whole studio, and then we were together too. And
Right.
so we knew each other. There's somebody that knows you and knows another person. And that's probably the most likely way that you're going to meet that person that doesn't need a mommy.
I hope so because it would be nice to rest after being a mommy all the time for
There you
someone,
go.
you know what I
There
mean?
you go.
Like, sometimes even mommies need a day off.
I, You are so right. You are so right. Because you have your own business,
Yeah.
and that in itself is so huge. And
Yeah, of
dealing with
course.
people, and I mean, think about what you do. You could do anything, right? I mean, you could do if you decided tomorrow you wanted to do something else, you have
Yeah,
the
totally.
facility and the experience to do anything.
Yeah.
Right? You know that. I know I could do something else too. So I think that there's something in that gives you a sense of self that a lot of other people who feel like mommies don't have. Right?
Well, yeah, I'm really great that I don't have to outsource my sense of my support or my purpose. I don't get
Yeah.
I get to do that for myself, and I was talking to a friend about that today. I'm so grateful I for all of the hard this is the thing about life. You can't take all the hard things out and say the hard things propel you to who you are. And so now that there's distance between those traumas, I'm grateful for them in a lot of ways because it has given me the tools to not have to outsource my worth to other people.
Mm,
Which is really crazy because I'm in an industry where it is about how many people come to see you and how many tickets they
right.
buy and, how much they
Right.
but at the same time, I understand that from a business perspective, but if all of that went away tomorrow, I would still have me,
Yeah.
and I would still have I'm like, "Okay, so these external things I no longer have," but I can still, going back to what you said, I could choose to do anything because the meanness of me can be applied to any situation.
Absolutely.
And so, but you can't get to that without the trauma in a weird way. I know that sounds crazy, but you can't,
Absolutely not.
you know,
Yeah.
light and the dark coexist and they
Yeah.
reflect off each other. And so, but it takes a little bit of living to understand that and not feel like you're a victim to your traumas.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. I have a question about
Okay.
AI.
Okay.
Tell me what you're thinking when it comes to AI.
At the moment, I don't think any of us really knows where it's going, but I've used it a little bit in songwriting. Um, I I think it's a great tool if it's used ethically. I don't think it's inevitable that it's gonna be here or that it's already here. I think it could be used to great use for curing cancers or for surgery or um, for doing a lot of things that the human mind has not been able to break
Yeah,
yet. So I think it's something to embrace, but at the same time, we have the dark web, we have fake news, we have rigged elections, we have, we don't know how dark the AI situation can go. And as you know, trusting governments to regulate shit is just like, okay,
no,
well, we can't even regulate each other before AI, so we're gonna trust people to
right?
regulate. All
No,
of a sudden, we have this new technology, and now we're supposed to trust people to regulate that. So I think we're just I mean, they're saying global warming in 2030. I mean, sometimes things are just so big that it's even hard for my today's brain to get my head around it because
mm,
it's like, worrying about AI. Will we even have a planet to be on to talk about AI? Well, like, will we even be here if there's a war in the next 6 months? Like, you know what I mean? So it's like we have these sort of existential questions about AI, but then it's like we just still, is there going to be, with global warming, is there going to be another pandemic? Is there going to be some disease that's we're just not equipped for that's been dormant for the last 200
Hmm.
years? I mean, I know it all sounds like science fiction and stuff, but it's sort of like, I think like everything in life, it's contextual and shades of gray and things that can be used just as it could be a wonderful tool for advancing humanity. It could also be a tool to destroy it. So
You
that
know
is
what?
my
Yeah,
thinking on it.
you are like you are so smart, and so I mean,
Oh,
I remember when we first met and
yeah.
thinking, oh my God, how fucking smart is that person? I mean,
Oh,
what
thank you.
your thought process and your approach to life and just your attitude, and you really are a deep thinker, and it's
Critical thinker.
really critical thinker, but
Yeah.
also critical, but also deep and really looking into it and not just on the surface. It's such a pleasure
Oh,
to
thank you.
have a conversation with you because I'm so aware of the 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 ability for you to not only emotionally go into a subject, but really from a very open perspective. And it's evident in our first conversation to this conversation. I'm
Oh,
so
thank you.
thrilled that you are doing this with me because it's been
Well,
I think
when I met you, I'm such a huge fangirl because I just, from the first time I saw, my connection to you was through your work. And then the more you learn about someone and just how you have been as a woman in fashion and having your own world. Um, the only other person that I have this sort of, I love people that create their own vocabulary and their own language and their own way of living. The only other person that I have that with was Rick Owens, and he said you spoke to him recently, and I was with Rick about 2 3 weeks ago, and I just said to him to his face, I said, the one thing I like about you more than anything is that you've created your own language, and that's not an easy thing to do,
mm,
um,
well
because
you and Rick are we talk about creating your own language. I mean,
yeah,
that's
and
the connection is really nice. It's
yeah, and
really nice.
so I'm such a Gemini. I'm just such a
I'm
Gemini.
with a Gemini
Yeah, I'm such a
who
Gemini,
has a
and
Gemini rising and Gemini in Jupiter. I am with
yeah,
6 people. Honey,
I,
help.
yeah, I mean,
And my
but
dog is a Gemini.
But the funny thing is that, my father, I had a really volatile relationship with my father. And I realized, before he passed, we made amends. But
Oh, that's great.
um, as a kid growing up, I don't know where I got this energy from because I grew up at a time when children should be seen and not heard. And you did what your parents said and you didn't talk
Right.
back. And there was my father, I'm this little kid, and my father would say something and I would just blurt it out. And it wasn't like and I knew that my father, I got kicked out of the house a couple of times, my dad, and I realized that what me and my father were doing were reflecting each other. And my father maybe didn't like that. He didn't like what he was saying,
Yeah.
and um, also my parents were super young when I got married and had me. Um, but one of the things that my dad and what I couldn't do over him was he didn't like bullshit. And he didn't like you. He used to always say to me, "You must think I'm stupid." And that's how I go through life. And it's just sort of like I look at things and I'm like, am I really supposed to believe that? Am I
Right.
really supposed to like am I really supposed to like you know what I mean? Like, are you for real? And
It's
I look at
offensive, right? It's
everything
offensive. Yeah.
and I look at everything from my world, the DJ world, to fashion, to politics, to art. And I'm just like, you really think I'm stupid because you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I'm not buying what you're selling. And maybe the other person needs what you're selling. But for me personally, like, so I get a lot of deep thinking just from my father's simple phrase, you must think I'm stupid.
Yeah.
So I just heard it so often growing up
Yeah.
that I think maybe, and I also think when you are, um, one of the blessings about being a trans person is that I had to really understand myself in relationship to womanhood, manhood, heteronormativity, homonormativity. Like, where do I fit in any of this? And because you realize that, well, I'm not that. Well, there's no space for me there, or I can't fit in. Like, I'm not bi, I'm not this, I'm not that. And then and so you have to do a lot of, or I've had to do a lot of work that sometimes happen to people later in life,
Hmm.
or they may have to self-reflect if they lose a job or there's a death or they get a disease. I often find, and I hate to say this, I often find, especially with male identified human beings, something has to happen to them for them to self-reflect because they're not born as a woman, or they're not, and I'm speaking generally of
Right. Right.
non-POC
Hmm.
heteronormative men. Something has to happen to them to jolt them into self-reflection,
Yeah.
as opposed to just by your very nature of existing, you challenge.
Yeah.
And so I've had to really look at things in order to be able to not only communicate to another human being who and what I am, but also who and what my art is, or
Mm.
why I like this. Because I have to talk to people that may have never seen a trans person, or never experienced one, or never been around one. And that rolls over into romantic partnerships too.
Mm.
Um, and so, I've had to do a lot of deep thinking at 18 as opposed to 65
Yeah.
or 60 or
And
40.
and the truth is, instead of having to fit in a box,
But yeah, there
you
was no box.
no, but you fit into you fit into the universe.
Well,
So
that's the funny thing. I
that's what
always said,
happens, right?
this is what I've always said, I've never, as a trans person, ever felt like I was born in the wrong body. I really hate that. I know that a lot of people say that
Right.
to communicate who they are to other people, but I felt like, wait a minute, I'm just a part of the universe. This is just another
Yeah.
expression
Yeah.
of the universe. There is no wrong body. There is no wrong color.
Hmm.
I am just like a flower. There's 50 different kinds of flowers. Do you think a cactus is to a rose?
Right.
Oh, you know what I mean? Like, we're all here to coexist. And
Mm.
this earth, and this, while I have this here, is for me. And that's my self-definition for me. I know a lot of people feel like they may have been born in the wrong body and they want to
Mm.
change it. I respect. But for me, I just thought the world does such a great job of beating myself up for who I am. I don't want to contribute to that.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. I don't
Yeah.
want to internalize that because um I love this quote by Jennifer Lewis, the actress Jennifer Lewis. And she made a metaphor. She's like, someone asked a question, how is it that you just really have come to this place of power where you just don't care about what people think or say about you? And she said, if you are on your deathbed and you ask someone to trade places with you, would you die for me right now? Most people would say no. So why why are you willing to live for someone that is not willing to die for you? Why
Wow.
are you living for someone that's not
Wow.
willing to die for you?
Oh, that's a big one.
That's a
I,
big one.
that's incredible. That's
Yeah. And that was, to me, was like, sometimes when you feel like something breaks and opens in you, it's like, why am I living for the opinions of others when not willing to die for me? And why do I care so much when these people wouldn't trade places in my life and couldn't and wouldn't if they could? So there was a sense of liberation with
mm,
that. And
yeah.
it's so funny because liberation And I like to, some people call it angels. I think divine words or divine energy can come in many different forms and from many different places. And that was a divine lesson for me.
Yeah.
Why are you willing to live for someone that's not willing to die for you?
Yeah. Yeah. And I really do believe um, that we're protected. You know, you said, I don't know if it's angels, but I do feel more and more that it's not, I don't know if it's angels and I don't know what it is, but
Right.
there's a spirit energy or something that is is around us if we kind of are open to it. And I think if we pay attention and we have uh, an idea or a purpose, and we really want to fulfill that
Right.
purpose, right?
Right.
Which is more than finding a mate or finding something that's, you know, in the context of what our lives are, but just a bigger purpose. Um, I really feel that we're protected in
Mhm.
some way, right?
Mhm.
Don't you feel that there is something protecting you because you'll go through something and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, something happens and it opens a door, it opens a possibility that you weren't
Right.
even considering.
Right.
And I think that those things happen. And if we're aware of them and we recognize that that's an opportunity,
Mhm.
that's not just something that that's an opportunity to take
Yeah,
it.
but most, but that goes back to change. If you're not, but also I think what I've also learned in life is to have a little bit of empathy for people that aren't equipped to deal with change. I was lucky, I always think, you know, we live in the Western world, we're given this sort of mindset that we have agency over our lives. And but then you think about countries where people don't have that agency. Even what's happening in the Gaza right now, these people don't have any agency over
Mm,
their lives. And so I think sometimes we need to also have a bit of empathy about change as well. Um, I always really feel that I live in gratitude, um, and I'm always so grateful that I get to get up and choose my day. That to me is my luxury item. I
mhm.
get to wake up. First, I wake up. First, I wake up, and then I get to choose my day. There is nothing more for me. I've already won. I've already won. Everything else that happens during the course of that day is a cherry on top.
Yeah. Well, that's a beautiful way to end this conversation.
Oh,
And I'm like, I love speaking with you. And
oh, thank you.
I'm
It's such a
so, yeah,
honor and a pleasure for me too. Yeah.
I hope we can see each other soon. And
Yes, I would love that.
I'll be going to London more because my partner spends a lot of time in London and Manchester. Do you go to
Okay.
Manchester?
Yeah, my manager is based in
Oh,
Manchester.
that's right. That's
Yeah, yeah,
right.
Sam is based in Manchester.
Yes,
So I go to Manchester a couple of times. But I one of the great things about living in London is that I get 2 hours to Paris and 1.5 hours to
I
Spain, one and
know.
a half hour to Italy, 1.5 hours to Berlin,
Yeah.
go to, you
It's
know,
true.
yeah.
It's really great. Anyway, maybe we'll see each other
It
and
would be a
yeah,
pleasure.
I really love this. Thank you so much. And I love that you're an optimist because you really are such a special person and
Oh,
I'm
thank
so
you.
happy that I know you. Thank you so much.
And the words from one of my favorite movies, Ghosts, ditto.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Take
I know.
care.
Thank
All the
you.
best. Love you. Bye-bye. Hey, press follow and leave a comment after you listen to the podcast. Thanks.